Wednesday afternoon. Excited we've got Julian in the house. What's up, Julian?
Hi.
How are
Nothing
things
too
in
much.
New York City?
Same old, same old. It's getting cold, which is no fun.
Have
But
any
other than that,
snowed there yet?
no snow. Thankfully. I usually like the snow, but well, I mean, I'm not going out and walking too much anyway, so I guess that doesn't bother me as much. But it's just getting cold. It's like 30s, which I know to some people probably isn't too bad, but it's a little cold. How about you?
No snow out here in Portland. It's pretty rare, but it happens. It happens every once in a while, and like when it does, we're just totally unprepared for it. No salt, no like
Interesting.
uh, snow plows, very few and far between. It's a mess. So I am very grateful to be working from home,
There
thankfully.
you go. Yeah.
The Yeah, it's weird. Winter is always when I'm like really eager and excited to get an escape from Portland to go somewhere warm, Hawaii, Mexico,
Mhm.
Arizona, where what have you. I'm putting that on hold right now. I'm waiting for that vaccine to be able to feel good and get back in the skies and traveling again. Super excited for. We've had a lot of good news lately, but I know for a lot of folks, winter time is when maybe traveling to go skiing, traveling to maybe snowbirds, go down to Florida. I want to hear what types of trips folks have planned either for the winter or into 2021. And as is tradition around here, the very first question have to answer no matter what. So get those questions in, and we are going to pop in as many as we can. I still can't see anything in there. Is anybody here?
No, yeah, no. There's a few people here. I just think we haven't gotten questions yet. So yeah, if you have, we're going to be talking mistake fares. We're going to be talking just travel in general. Any questions that you have, drop them in the comments, and we'll go off that. Scott, I'm gonna take the first question here. Actually, you said warm destinations. Do you think you like just say out of 10 trips, how many of them are to colder destinations? How many of them are to your, tropical beach, warmer
Hmm.
destinations?
I tend to avoid, generally speaking, the sort of tropical beach vacation. I get a little bored
Interesting.
on the
Okay.
beach. Like I'm not a great
Yeah.
swimmer. I don't tan
Mhm.
well. It's just like not my. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of wound up, but I don't. I don't like love just like, oh, let me just go sit on the beach and do nothing. Like I get bored as shit really, really quickly. So for me, like I want to go somewhere where I can eat some really good food. I want to go somewhere I can walk and bike around and really kind of explore. Those are kind of the trips that get me really pumped up and jazzed up. And kind of the one of the biggest criteria, I'll be honest, in my mind, it feel a little sheepish saying this as the founder of a travel company. I try to go to places when I think there's not going to be many other tourists around, whether that is going somewhere off season or whether that's going to more kind of, less your sort of Paris, London, Sydney type of places and more kind of your Kuala Lumpurs or your, Mumbai's or places like
Hmm.
that might be a little bit just less kind of like competing with other tours for like some of the interesting spots. That's my strategy though. I do not
Yeah.
anybody who loves a good pina colada on the beach. That sounds lovely in the many, many winter times, and I can understand the appeal. So that's generally the way that I approach it. I want to hear in the comments
Mhm.
section though, how do you like to vacation? Do you like to go to the warm spots? Do you really kind of prefer just hitting wherever there's not going to be many other people? Are you a snowboarder or skier? You're trying to hit those mountains maybe in the wintertime. What is in your kind of vacation mentality? How do you think about it?
Yeah. We have a few comments here. So Dina says, looking forward to hearing about mistake fairs. We will be talking about mistake fairs very soon. Daniel says, I'm here in chilly Florida. Um, yeah, I don't, I don't have too much to say there. I do love Florida, actually. I'm always surprised at how sudden, but also how quick it rains slash thunderstorms there. I know that's like a common thing that happens down in Florida, but it always surprises me every time it hits me. So
Florida is a land of limitless surprises. You never quite get a full grasp on Florida.
there you go. Our first question comes from Matt, and he asks, the news is saying most Americans will be vaccinated by spring/summer. Does this mean travel will be open?
Excellent question, Matt. So yes, this is what the sort of vaccinologists, epidemiologists, the scientists have largely been saying is that assuming that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines get the FDA approval, which seems like it's going to happen a week from tomorrow, sometime next week, and then starts to roll out to first to healthcare workers and folks in nursing homes, and then kind of slowly into a broader population. Dr. Scott Gottlieb and others have said, yes, they kind of anticipate these sort of April, May, June as when they would expect it to be widely available for most Americans. And so what will that mean for travel? Will travel be open? There are a couple different parts of travel, and each of them is going to be handled differently. The first one is just getting on an airplane. And the answer is absolutely it's going to be open, because even right now, you don't have to you certainly don't have to show proof of vaccination. You don't have to even show a negative COVID test to get on an airplane in the US. You do have to wear a mask while you're on board. And I would expect that will still be the case even in spring, summertime. I think we're going to have to kind of have the pandemic in the rearview mirror for at least a solid 3-4 months before those mask requirements go away.
Right.
But, so airplane travel absolutely is going to be open. The bigger question, I suppose, is what about places that folks might want to visit that are currently closed for Americans, but we're hoping will be open again? Places like Europe, places like Japan, and elsewhere. And I would expect that those are the types of places where a vaccine or a proof of negative COVID test will be required in order to travel to those places. And so right now, whereas they say no tourism or very, very limited tourism, they might say, yes, tourists are welcome as long as you've either been vaccinated or you have a negative COVID test. And rather than for the way they'll probably enforce that is rather than having you show proof when you arrive in that country, let's say you're going to, Paris, rather than bring your proof and showing it to the border officials in Paris, you'll probably have to show it to the airlines when you show up at your departing airport, much in the same way, if you're traveling somewhere where you need a visa or just you're traveling internationally, you have to show them your passport at the airport where you're departing, because they want to make sure that they're not responsible for flying you home if you're not allowed in the country that you're visiting. So I think travel will start to really open up as the vaccines become more widely available. I would expect that most of the countries around the world that are currently closed to Americans will be open to Americans by sort of late spring, early summer, again, depending on the vaccine availability. But I would expect that will be a requirement in many of those places in order to visit.
There you go. We have a few comments. Kira says, warm, please. So we got one for warm, and then Gail says warm to hot for me. She also asks, Scott, how many countries have you visited, and what was your favorite?
Hey, Gail. I have visited about 50 countries, and while it is difficult to pick between favorite countries because it's like picking between your own children, I'm going to go ahead and pick Mexico. Mexico is my favorite. I freaking love visiting Mexico. It's one of my favorite countries, and not just one part of it. I love visiting all over. I've used to live in Oaxaca, had an amazing time there. Love Mexico City, love Puebla, had an amazing time visiting Puerto Vallarta, just an incredible country all over. San Cristobal de las Casas. There's incredible parts of Mexico, so varied, so diverse, so delicious. And that's why it's my favorite. And it's right there. It's so easy to travel to, so cheap. If Japan were as close as Mexico, that would be a tough choice.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
But the tiebreaker in my mind between Japan and Mexico is the fact that you have to cross the Pacific Ocean to get to Japan, whereas Mexico, you can leave in the morning and get there in the morning, the same day. Like it's right there. So
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I mean, usually when people are saying like, "What's your favorite place to go? What's your favorite country?" Rarely do I factor in how easy it is to get there as well. So that's an interesting one.
It often goes overlooked. People like your Mexicos, your Canadas, places that are Puerto Rico, others that are really close by. We don't often necessarily think of them as these amazing places, partly because they're so accessible. When we're dreaming big, when we're thinking bucket list, so many of us are thinking Japan, Australia, India, China, all of these places that are very kind of far flung. It takes a while to get there. And I don't begrudge that. I mean, these are amazing, wonderful places, but I think it's easy kind of to take for granted some of the amazing treasures we have that are quite a bit closer to us.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, obviously, another barrier that people may not think about when being asked, like, "What's your favorite country?" Is price. Obviously, depending on what the price is, some places are a lot more expensive to go to than others. And if people are like, "What's your favorite?" What's your favorite country that you've ever been to? New Zealand's probably up there for me. But if they ask, like, what's your favorite place that you've gone to for under, just say $300, $400, my answer drastically changes. But if you're lucky, and if we're lucky, there will be mistake fares to the location that you want to go to, and that barrier, that price barrier, gets lessened, if you will. So on that note, Scott, can you tell me a little about mistake fares? What are they? How do they happen? Just hit me with what you got.
Yes, absolutely. Great. By the way, professional segue. Just, gorgeous.
I'm proud.
Mistake fares. They're such an interesting thing because airfare is such a volatile beast. One day it's $800 for a flight. Next day it's $300. Next day it's $1,300. The exact same flight. And because it's roller coastering around so much, it's kind of hard to tell what's a good deal. Is this better than normal? Not as good as normal. But there's one class of airfares. There's one category that is always an amazing deal, and that's a mistake fare. Let's rewind to 2013. I was just a hobbyist, a cheap flight hobbyist. I was not yet a professional cheap flight finder. I was just somebody who did this for fun. And I'd stumbled across the best deal that still to this day I've ever gotten in my life. And it was a nonstop flight from New York City to Milan on United Airlines for $130 round trip. The funny thing was, this was a fare that they probably meant to sell for $1,300, and maybe they forgot a zero at the end. There's any number of reasons why an airline might mistakenly sell a ticket for way less than they meant to. That's what a mistake fare is. But the fact is, it's still available. And if you can find it and purchase it before they fix the mistake, then you're the proud owner, the proud recipient of an incredible, cheap, a once in a lifetime fare. So, it's not just that $130 fare to round trip fare to Milan. I've gotten $169 round trip to Japan. I've gotten, $220 round trip to Barcelona, $225 round trip to Brussels. Went there twice. Even this, we've been seeing them throughout 2020. A week or two ago, hundreds, if not thousands of Scotch Cheap Flights members bought a flight down to Latin America. There was one from Atlanta to Santiago for, I believe it was $63 round trip on Delta.
Yeah.
Woo. That is an incredible fare. And that's one that, again, Delta did not mean to sell that for $63. Some error along the way, some mistake, whether they accidentally, forgot a zero at the end, they meant to sell it for 630. Maybe it was a currency conversion error. There are any number of reasons why a mistake fare pops up, but the thing to know is that because they're a mistake, they tend not to last very long. We're talking, 3, 4, 5 hours, which is why we, at Scotch Cheap Flights try to find them as quickly as we can. And when we find them, we want to get it out to our members so that they can book them before it disappears. Because once that $63 round trip flight to Santiago disappears, that's it. You have to wait for the next mistake fare to pop up.
Yeah. I think with a lot of our deals that we send, the majority of them, when if I have family or friends asking about, hey, should I book this deal, or oh my goodness, like I need to book this deal, most of the times I'm like, hey, if you know you can go, and if you obviously if you book with the airline, you can get a refund within 24 hours. But a lot of the times I'm like, the deal eventually will come around again. Most of these deals we've seen over and over. It's not that big of a deal if you maybe miss this one. Mistake fares, though, are a completely different thing. $63 round trip from Atlanta to Santiago. I can't tell people like, hey, this one will come around again, because I mean, more than likely it won't. Well, it still might, but it's super, super rare for this to happen.
I mean, that's the funny thing about absolutely more mistake fares will happen. I can guarantee that. But will a mistake fare to Santiago pop up again? Will it pop up from Atlanta to Santiago? Will it be $63? That's a little bit harder to say. Let me give you just a couple pieces for folks who might be wondering, how do I book a mistake fare? How do I make sure? What are the best practices? Here's what you need to know. First, if you're a member, remember that we only send mistake fares to our premium members. This is a perk that we've reserved for our most loyal members. And so if you're on the free list, that's why you maybe haven't seen any mistake fares, because they're only going to folks who are on the premium list. If you want to upgrade, it's scottscheapflights.com/premium. Thank you, Gail. I see your message there. Exactly. scottscheapflights.com/premium. We would love to have you. Second, and actually, by the way, we're selling gift cards right now. You have anybody in your life who you think might be traveling in 2021, interested in getting some mistake fares? We're now selling gift cards, gift memberships, so you can give the best gift of all, the gift of travel, to your loved ones this year. Second thing that I'd recommend, if you found a mistake fare, is to act quickly. Again, these do not last very long. We're talking 3, 4, 5 hours. Do not dawdle. Don't wait for your significant other to get home and discuss it for dinner. I'll sleep on it, and by tomorrow it won't be around. Third, generally recommend it's best to book directly with the airline. And the reason, rather than maybe through what's called an online travel agency, an Expedia or a Priceline or somewhere like that. And the reason why is that when you book directly with an airline, you get two benefits. One is that they issue the ticket basically right away. Whereas when you book through an OTA, an online travel agency, oftentimes there's a delay between when they take your money and when they actually issue the ticket. And if they have not issued the ticket before the airline fixes the mistake, then you're out of luck. Worst case, you'll get your money back. It's not as though they're going to take your money and not give you your ticket. But obviously you want that ticket. And so with the airline makes it much, much quicker that you'll actually get the e-ticket back from them. But the other benefit, and Julian mentioned this, only unpack it a little bit, is that by law in the United States, when you book directly with an airline, you are entitled to a 24-hour grace period after the moment you hit purchase, during which you can cancel that and get a full cash refund without any penalty. Now, why is that good? Because that means that basically, let's say you've got that $63 round trip flight to Santiago. You just got an alert from Scottish Flights about it. Like, should I book this? You're on the fence. Basically, if you were to wait and kind of think about it, see when your significant other might want to go, you risk it disappearing by the time you book. But instead, if you say, okay, I'm going to book it right now, book it for June 2021, when hopefully travel's back to normal. You've locked in the price. You've said, yes, I got this ticket for $63. It's been issued. It's locked in. And what I've really done is I've bought myself 24 hours to decide, because I know by law, I can get a full refund. I can get my $63 back if I decide in the next 24 hours that I don't want this ticket, if my significant other can't go, whatever the case may be. But what I've done is I've locked in the price and make sure that I've gotten that mistake fare before it disappears. So that's kind of the best practices to make sure that you don't wind up, I've got one regret in my cheap flight history, and that was a mistake fare to India. That was $200. This is back in like 2014, 2015.
Interesting.
I found, had the sweaty palms, racing heart, messaged my friend, and we were just like talking with one another for a couple hours, trying to plan out an itinerary,
Yeah.
what cities, and literally 30 seconds before I hit purchase, it disappeared. I could have gotten a $200 round trip to India, and so it's like, it's been 5 years, and I
know.
still just gnaws at me. And so don't be like me. Don't let it gnaw at you. Book it quickly, lock in the price, give yourself 24 hours to decide. Whatever questions, though, that folks have in the comment section about mistake fairs, I'm keen to hear this. Obviously, we love mistake fairs. This is what we live for. I want to hear what sort of you might be curious about and what's unclear. Whatever you've got, drop your questions below.
Yeah. I think the takeaway there is when it comes to mistake fairs, don't be like Scott, or else 5 years later, 5 or 6 years later, you're still going to be just full of regret there. We have a few questions and comments that I want to get through. A quick question from Kim. She asked, I remember paying $39 to join. Is that the premium service? Yes. And also, do you note that it is likely is a mistake fair when do you note that it is likely a mistake fair when providing the deal? We do. If it is a mistake fair, we always will note it either in the headline and in the deal itself that it is a mistake fair. And we do have the mistake fair kind of text and reminders that Scott actually just covered. So whether that be, make sure not to book any activities or flights maybe a week or two after you book the tickets to make sure they're there. All of these reminders will be in every single one of our mistake fair deals that we send out. Anything I missed there, Scott?
No, think you nailed it. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a gray area. Is this a mistake fair? Is it not? We will do our best to kind of use our best judgment and our 5-10 year history of being cheap flight experts to determine, is this a mistake fair? Was this an intended fair? And then be able to give you the resources so that you can book it with confidence that it'll work out.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting conversation that when we're searching the flights or when the deals come in and we're trying to decide how we want to send it out, it's a very interesting conversation to have when there are some deals that are just really good deals, and then there are some deals that are mistake fairs. So it's like, this is a really good deal. Is it a mistake fair though, or is it just a really good deal? And I think the most recent one that I remember seeing our flight experts kind of talk about was the Pittsburgh to Tokyo, $385 round trip, where that price was just so good. And it's like, is it a mistake fair or is it just a very good deal? So that's always a really fun one.
Yes.
So we have a few mistake fair questions. Tristan asks, have there been any mistake fairs currently?
There have been recent mistake fairs. Unfortunately, there's not any right this moment. I would say on average, we see a mistake fair once every month or two, maybe. Yeah. They come in waves. Sometimes they're, again, by their nature, because it's a mistake, it's hard to predict. But they're not any active mistake fairs right now. The most recent one was that deal down to Latin America, which the best of the bunch. They're all over. They were to Lima, to Panama City, to I think Brazil was in there. But the best one of those bunch was to Atlanta to Santiago for $63 round trip.
Enrique asks, what are the top mistake fairs that have been honored that you can list off the top of your head?
Probably the single best one was a couple years ago. There was a mistake fair for a business class deal from the West Coast to all over Southeast Asia. We're talking Bangkok, Bali, Vietnam, elsewhere, for about $550 or $600 round trip, again, in business class. Normally, to cross the Pacific Ocean in business class, you have to pay $4,000 or $5,000. So to get it for a tenth of the price is unreal. Other kind of best top mistake fairs that have been honored. you get at an interesting point here, which I think is probably a question on a lot of folks' mind. Do the airlines actually honor mistake fares?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is most of the time, yes. We found about 85 to 90% of the mistake fares that we send out, the airline honors. That means 10 to 15% of the time that they do not. When they don't honor a mistake fare, they typically are going to message anybody who bought that ticket within about 72 hours, usually, sometimes sooner than that, say, hey, it's a mistake. Sometimes they'll offer a little goodwill gesture. Here's a $100, coupon next time you book with us. But most of the time, again, 85, 90% of the time, they honor it. And the reason why airlines honor it most of the time is it's a good business move. It's a good PR move. They've got all these excited people talking about flying on their airline, when in reality, if they were to cancel all those people's tickets, then they've got a shitstorm in their hands. Everybody's flaming them on Twitter, on Instagram, TikTok, you name it. They're just going in on these airlines, how terrible they are for ruining their vacation. Air Canada, which did unfortunately cancel people's Australian mistake fare earlier this year. I still see it to this day. Months and months later, people hold a grudge against Air Canada for canceling that mistake fare. Other airlines see this and they're like, we don't want to deal with that. We'll swallow the loss of revenue that we got from honoring these mistake fares, and we're gonna honor it. And that's why most of the time they do. The tricky thing is, it's rare that an airline announces, hey, we're honoring that mistake fare. Most of the time, the way to think about it, it's just like you booked any other ticket. Think back to the last vacation you booked. Did the airline go on Twitter and announce, hey, we're honoring that $300 flight you bought to Dallas. We're honoring that, or send you an email later like, yeah, your ticket is valid. No, they wouldn't do that. They don't do that. And that's how most of them approach a mistake fare. No news is usually good news. So usually, the way that I'll sort of think about it, best practice is I book a mistake fare, I cross my fingers, I say my prayers, I wait for about a week or two, usually 10 to 14 days. And if I haven't, if the ticket is still valid, I can still log into the airline, see the ticket there, haven't gotten any message about it being canceled. Then I feel confident, yes, this has been honored, and I get to planning my trip.
Yeah. And yeah, to talk about, Enrique, your question a little more, there's not too many. I mean, I don't think I can list out maybe 10 or 15 off the top of my head. I know we sent the Atlanta to Santiago one for $63 round trip. Dallas to Ecuador for, I think, $209 round trip. I know we had a Boston business class to the Azores and Portugal for $600 round trip. But really, I think it's kind of almost a good thing that we're not able to list out or remember all of them. And I think the ones we mainly remember are the ones that either we sent or that we bought. We bought and went on those trips. And so it goes to show you, while mistake fares are rare, there are enough that come along that it's hard to remember all of them. So there you go. Rocky says, Scott, I just want to say thank you to you and your team for the Santiago, Chile mistake fare. I was able to snag 2 round trip tickets for my husband and I for May. Fingers crossed everything is accessible.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it seems like that one's been honored. Again, we sent that, I think it was over 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. Haven't heard of anybody getting their ticket canceled. So if I had one of those tickets, I would feel very, very confident at this point. Congratulations.
Yeah. Anthony also says, I got my $63 steak fare. And then I think I remember seeing one more, but I may have lost the comment in the questions that we have. There was one comment that I really liked. It was from Dina, and it was I just thought it was a really cool way for a parent to kind of not push travel on, but encourage travel with their children. And she says, I have an August trip planned to Greece. When our kids were little, we said they could pick 2 countries to visit before they go to college. In return, they have to put in the best efforts in all their activities and expect fewer things for birthdays and Christmas. My daughter picked England and Italy, and my son picked Greece and Italy. All great destinations, I feel like. My husband
that's really cool. I've got a young daughter. I'm taking notes for how to kind of structure these incentives. I love this, Dina. Thank you. I try that myself.
She says, my husband and I also got to choose 2 countries also, as long as we put in our best efforts too. So kind of a self-motivator there.
Exactly. It's a family.
There you go. And goal is to get them out there in the amazing world as much as we can. So I thought that was really cool. We answered Gil's question there. So our next question comes from Tristan. We already answered that. Wow, we answered more questions than I thought we did, Scott. A lot of there's someone asking about someone who's 6'4" and booking seats. What are some tips for the really tall people out there, and the best tips they can do to comfortably also fly?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with the Points Guy. And one of the things that folks might not know about the Points Guy is he is really, really tall. I think he's like, gosh, I don't know exactly, maybe like 6'6" or something. And if I recall correctly, this is one of the reasons why he kind of got into points in the first place, was because he wanted to be able to fly in business class, because that's where you could actually have seats that were large enough for him to comfortably sit on a flight, all the way to Europe or all the way to Asia or all the way to Africa without, being incredibly cramped at that height. And so, points and miles for most people are the most accessible way to get a business class seat. They are a lot larger. You have a lot more leg room. It's way more comfortable. They are very, very expensive if you're paying with cash. I mean, the threshold from just decent to a good price for a cash business class flight to Europe is $2,000. For a flight to Asia, the threshold from anything beneath $3,000 would be a better than normal price. Those are expensive flights, and so for many people, getting into the points and miles game, which I will tell you, as somebody who's very into it, but as somebody who also recognizes it is extremely complicated, you can get out of what you want to, and there are a lot of great resources to kind of learn from. The Points Guy I mentioned, Frequent Miler, View from the Wing. There are a lot of other ones like this where they kind of help guide you early on in how to sort of think about points and miles and how to make sure that you're doing it to your advantage so that you can get these business class seats, get these seats without kind of falling prey to some of the normal traps that occur along the way if you're getting into the kind of credit card and miles game.
Yeah, I think another kind of resource that I like to use is tools like Seat Guru, where they kind of give the detailed map of what your plane will look like. So you're able to see if it's an exit row, or if it's maybe a three seat setup going into a 2-seat setup. So that could be another thing to look at. Trying to see what the plane will look like and choosing seats based off that.
Yes.
Allison, hey, Allison. She makes a good point, I think, based off what you were saying earlier, Scott, that I won't fly Air Canada after the cancellation, even though those flights would have been canceled due to COVID. That's true.
Still mad at them. Can't believe they canceled those.
Yeah. And then you got time for 2 more questions, Scott?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. We'll do 2 quick questions here. Belinda asks, this is a good question. Well, they're all good questions. Is there a pattern for times of day when the mistake fares occur?
Yes, but. So the but is that it's a mistake, and mistakes by their nature are kind of random. It's hard to predict. There's not a sort of a through and through pattern, but by and large, there are times when mistake fares are slightly more likely to pop up than others. And historically, we've seen these pop up more often than others. And those times tend to be nights, weekends, and holidays. Now, what do nights, weekends, and holidays have in common? Fewer people in the office, fewer people in the airline office to catch a mistake fare before it goes out the door. if it's in the middle of the workday on a, I don't know, a Tuesday or Wednesday or something, there's a lot more folks around in the revenue department at the airlines who might notice it, or even if it goes out, be able to fix it quickly. Where some of the best mistake fares in the history have been mistake fares that happened on Christmas or on New Year's Day or on a Saturday or something like that. I remember a few years ago there were ones to Australia for $350 round trip from like every airport in the US, like from Dayton, Ohio down to Sydney for $350 round trip, and it was on a Saturday. Because again, there just weren't people in the airline office there to be able to catch it nearly as well. So again, I would not recommend like staying glued to your computer every night, every weekend, every holiday, because the odds on any given one of those is still very, very low. I mean, this is our job, and we see a mistake fare once every month or two. But to the extent that there is a pattern, that's what it tends to be.
Yeah. And I think also with how quickly they're fixed as well. Sometimes we see mistake fares hang around for 6 hours, 8 hours, something like that. There are some mistake fares that get fixed within 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So it really comes down to.
Those are always sad.
I know, always. Final question is from Louise, and she asks, what is the best way to track down mistake fares, like an alert system or something?
There's this company, I think they're called Scott's Cheap
Expensive
Airfare,
something like that.
Scott's Budget Deal. No, Scott's Cheap Flight. Scott's Cheap Flight. That's the one.
There you go.
Sign up, really easy. You put in your email. You can be on the free list, but again, remember, mistake fares only go to premium members. So you'll see it sign up the option to go premium. In all seriousness, we'd love to have you. We love finding mistake fare. As exciting as it is for our members to get that alert for a mistake fare, remember and understand, it is incredibly exciting for us too. Julian can probably speak to this even as well, better than I can. It is a rush when there is a mistake fare. Julian, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the last mistake fare happened during like an all company meeting when everybody's supposed to be like paying attention to stuff and like, oh my God, this is happening.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think the flight experts, some of them just weren't able to hop on the all hands kind of meeting that we had because they were so focused on getting this deal out. So it really is. It's like everyone, all hands on deck, mistake fare, super exciting. Because you're right. It's not only an amazing deal. It's something that we're extremely excited to find, but more importantly, extremely excited to send out for people to book, and getting all the testimonials and even the comments that we see here of people booking the flights. That's one of the best parts of the job. So
yeah, listen, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for your awesome questions. We are going to be searching for more mistake fares because we love them. That's what we're here for. That's our bread and butter. And in between finding those next mistake fares, we are going to find as many cheap flights to places you want to fly. Let us know where you're interested in going for 2021. I know 2021 is going to be an amazing year for travel. As terrible as 2020 has been for travel, next year is going to be absolutely incredible for it. We want to hear where you are interested in going, where you're hoping for cheap flights to pop up, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen. So thank you all for your wonderful questions. Thank you for being here. And I know I'm not going to be here next week. Are you here next week, Julian?
I am. I will be here next week. So
Julian will be here next week with a special guest. Excited to take your questions then.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you all later.